Thank you for joining us for the first session in the January 2026 Wellness Wednesday sessions. Today we're diving into a concept that is both ancient and beautifully relevant for modern life, and that's Ikigai. This is all about understanding what gives your life meaning, what energizes you, and what supports your well-being, especially at the start of the new year. As we explore this idea together, give yourself permission to be curious rather than pressured. Ikigai isn't about finding a single perfect calling or fixing your life overnight. It's about creating clarity, alignment, and a sense of direction that feels authentic. Even understanding just one small piece of your Ikigai can help guide choices, reduce stress, and create more intentional momentum. Whether you're here to reflect on the new year, reconnect with yourself, or simply explore something new, you're in the right place. So let's take this time to slow down, to breathe, and to discover what feels meaningful for you in 2026. In this session, we'll look at what Ikigai means, where it comes from, and how it can act as a gentle compass for your life. We're not trying to reach perfection or pressure ourselves into grand resolutions. Instead, we'll explore how purpose and fulfillment can show up in everyday routines, decisions, and relationships. We'll walk through the four components of Ikigai, looking at practical examples and reflect on what feels most aligned for you right now. You'll also have an opportunity to do a simple guided activity to begin mapping your own Ikigai. If you're joining live, you can jot things down as we go. And if you're watching this as a recording, please feel free to pause and spend a little extra time with the prompts. My hope is that by the end of today's session, you'll walk away with a small sense of clarity, maybe even one phrase, one value, or one intention that can gently anchor your year. Ikigai is a Japanese word that translates loosely to a reason for being. It comes from two parts, ikai, meaning life, and gai, meaning worth or value. Together, Ikigai describes the things, big or small, that make life feel meaningful. And a quick pronunciation note. It is pronounced Ikigai. Many people first learn about Ikigai through the famous four-circle diagram that shows where your passions, skills, values, and contributions intersect. But the heart of this is much softer than the diagrams. It's about finding what lights you up, what steadies you during hard seasons, and what gives you a sense of purpose in your day-to-day life. In Japan, Ikigai is often tied to simple joys, morning routines, meaningful relationships, hobbies, work, and small acts of contribution. It doesn't require grandeur. It doesn't demand that you find your calling. It simply invites you to notice what makes life feel worth living. Ikigai is often represented as four overlapping areas: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what sustains you, either personally or professionally. Each of these represents a different part of a meaningful life. What you love reflects passion or joy. What you're good at highlights your natural strengths or learned skills. What the world needs points to contribution, connection, or service. Not necessarily in grand ways, but in ways that matter to the people or communities around you. And what sustains you includes the practical realities, your job, your responsibilities, and how you support yourself. Ikigai is found where these areas overlap, but that overlap doesn't need to be perfect. Even exploring one or two of these circles can bring clarity. Many people find their Ikigai through a combination of work, hobbies, relationships, and personal rhythms rather than one single thing. There are a few common misconceptions about Ikigai that can create pressure. One is the belief that you must have one ultimate purpose, a passion so strong that everything else falls away. In reality, most people have multiple sources of meaning, and they shift throughout our lives. Another misconception is that Ikigai has to be tied to your job. And while it can show up in your career, many people find theirs in relationships, caregiving, community involvement, creative interests, or even personal rituals. You don't have to monetize what you love or turn your passion into your career to have purpose. And finally, Ikigai is not something you achieve. It's just something you explore. It evolves, it grows with you, it flexes during different seasons of life. And this mindset helps remove pressure and opens the door to discovering meaning in everyday experiences. Values are the foundation of Ikigai because they help us understand why certain things matter to us. When your daily actions and decisions reflect what you care about most, life feels more aligned and less chaotic. When your actions drift away from your values, even unintentionally, life can feel draining or disconnected, even if everything looks fine on the outside. Think of values as the compass that helps you decide which direction to walk. They don't tell you exactly what to do, but they keep you pointed toward what feels meaningful. For some people, values like creativity, stability, curiosity, family, or even service show up strongly. For others, it might be adventure, peace, learning, fairness, or growth. There's no right or wrong here. As you begin exploring your Ikigai, gently reflect on questions like, what matters most to me this year? What do I want to protect? And where do I want to grow? The answers don't have to be perfect or permanent, they just have to feel true for right now. One of the easiest ways to find your Ikigai is by noticing your natural energy patterns. Think about moments when you felt in flow, when time passed quickly, or when you felt deeply engaged in what you were doing. Those small sparks are big clues. You don't have to be amazing at something for it to energize you. You just have to feel alive while doing it. On the other hand, pay some attention to what consistently drains you. These are your red flags. Sometimes it's the task itself, other times it's the environment, the expectations, or the way we've been taught to approach something. Knowing what burns you out is just as important as knowing what fills you up. And remember, those small moments always count too. Maybe you feel most like yourself when you're helping a coworker understand something, reorganizing a space, writing, planning, connecting, creating, learning, supporting, or solving problems. These moments point toward things that matter to you, and sometimes they're the beginning of purpose. It's normal to feel disconnected from purpose, especially during stressful or transitional seasons. Many people feel too overwhelmed to think about purpose, and that doesn't mean that something is wrong. Barriers like burnout, overwork, emotional exhaustion, caregiving responsibilities, grief, or pressure from others can cloud our sense of direction. Another common barrier is fear of disappointing someone, fear of failing, fear of trying something new, or fear of acknowledging that something isn't working anymore. These fears are deeply human and they can make purpose feel out of reach, but naming them gives you power. And sometimes the barrier is simply numbness. When everything feels flat, it might just mean you need gentleness, rest, and even time, not a big life overhaul. Ikigai isn't about forcing inspiration, it's about reconnecting with small sparks even during difficult seasons. One of the most comforting parts of Ikigai is the idea that meaning doesn't have to be big. You can find purpose in small, everyday rituals, a morning cup of tea, caring for pets, listening to music, helping a coworker, things like working on a hobby or taking a walk, or just connecting with someone who matters to you. These micro Ikigai moments help stabilize your emotional world. They can be especially meaningful when life feels uncertain or overwhelming. Think of them as small anchors that just help keep you grounded. And the more you notice them, the more they add up. Some people feel this pressure to find a grand life mission, but micro ikigai reminds us that the little things often matter just as much. Purpose can be gentle, subtle, and woven throughout your daily routine, not something you have to chase or achieve. So, let's do a reflection. In this activity, I'm going to guide you through the four Ikigai quadrants. You don't need perfect answers, just jot down whatever comes to mind. If you're watching the course as a recording, feel free to pause between prompts. If we're here live, I'll give you a few moments to reflect as we go. So let's start with what you love. Think about activities, moments, topics, or experiences that bring joy or spark curiosity. Again, if you're live here, we'll go ahead and pause and you can jot these down. If you're listening to this as the recording, please feel free to pause and come back when you're ready. And once we're ready, let's go ahead and next consider what we're good at. These can be natural strengths, learned skills, or things people tend to ask you for help with. Again, take a minute to jot a couple of things down or pause the recording and come back when you're ready. Then think about what the world needs. Not the entire world, though, but the world around you, your workplace, your family, your community, your circle. And then when you come back, let's reflect on what sustains you, your work, your life, your responsibilities, or anything that supports your well being or stability. And then once you have one or two items in each category, notice whether any themes or overlaps stand out. And remember, you don't need a perfect intersection. This is just our starting point. Ikigai becomes powerful when you use it to guide your choices. If something aligns with your values, strengths, joys, and contribution, it might be worth prioritizing. If something consistently drains you, conflicts with your values, or leaves you feeling disconnected, it may be an area to shift or set boundaries around. And again, we're not talking about major life changes. The small decisions, those projects you say yes to, how you choose to approach your workday, the rituals you might build into your morning routine, the way you support your relationships, all of these create momentum. Throughout the year, you can return to your Ikigai map and ask, is this still true for me? What feels aligned now? What needs to change? In this way, it becomes a living guide rather than a rigid plan. So let's actually take a minute and look at a few simple examples of how people apply Ikigai. Someone who loves helping others and is skilled at organizing might find meaning in streamlining processes at work or supporting colleagues who feel overwhelmed. Another person who values creativity and connection may find fulfillment through small projects, team brainstorming, or personal art time on the weekend. A caregiver might discover their ikigai through routines that support emotional presence, like daily grounding moments, shared meals, or acts of kindness. Meanwhile, someone navigating burnout might find purpose in rest, boundaries, and rebuilding a sense of self. These examples show that ikigai can look incredibly different depending on your values, season of life, and even your responsibilities. There is absolutely no correct way to express it. Ikigai doesn't require a big commitment. It asks for one small, meaningful step. So think about something you can experiment with over the next week or maybe even a month. Maybe it's reconnecting with a hobby you miss, incorporating a grounding ritual into your day, or spending more time on tasks that feel aligned. A purpose experiment is something you try, not something you promise. It's short, flexible, and low pressure. You're simply exploring what feels good and what feels true. Over time, these experiments help clarify what supports your well being and what doesn't. And remember, alignment grows in small moments, not dramatic changes. Ikigai is not a destination, it's a practice. It evolves with you, and it doesn't need to be clear all at once. The most important takeaway is that purpose can be grounded in the everyday, in relationships, in routines, in creativity, in care, in curiosity. Whether your ikigai feels small or expansive right now, it's valid. You don't have to have everything figured out to live with intention. Even one value, one spark, or one moment of clarity can help guide your path forward. So keep coming back to what feels aligned, energizing, and meaningful, especially in the quieter seasons of this year. So thank you for spending this time exploring your ikigai with me. I hope this session gave you space to reflect, breathe, and reconnect with what matters most to you. If you're keeping track of your Ikigai map, please feel free to continue exploring it over the next week. Your insights will deepen the more you sit with them. So, if you're watching the recording, I want you to go ahead and take a moment now to choose one small step or ritual that feels aligned with your Ikigai for 2026. So thank you for being here and for making the choice to start your year with intention.